Hey everyone. First of all, thank you for coming to watch this session, and also thanks to the organisers for letting me speak. It's good to be here and good to have you all attend. So this session is how we build a successful DevOps culture. So real quick introduction first of all. So my name is Martin. I'm the head of DevOps at Transparency in the UK, and we are a managed service provider with a focus on Microsoft Azure and the Microsoft Cloud technology stack. My role there is basically around building and managing the cloud management platform and the adoption of DevOps within the organization. So quite a varied role, but very much on point with what we're talking about today. Excuse me. So I'm also a DevOps ambassador with the DevOps Institute as well as a Microsoft MVP in Azure as well. So we're going to go through some of the bits that I've picked up certainly throughout my career in DevOps so far around exactly how we build a successful DevOps culture. So So first of all, I think it's really important that we discuss what makes a DevOps culture and what exactly we mean when we say DevOps culture. I talk to a lot of people who ask that question. It's okay saying we need to build and foster a DevOps culture, but what does that actually mean? So I think first of all, it comes through open communication. So a DevOps culture really for me is one that's created through lots of discussion and lots of debate and healthy debate. Not just agreeing with everyone or disagreeing with everyone, a good mix of those two. So I think traditionally, your siloed technical teams will interact through complex ticketing systems, ritualistic request procedures. Sometimes you may need director level intervention in there as well just to get stuff done. A team that takes a more DevOps approach talks about the product throughout its life cycle, be that through requirements, features, schedules, resourcing, whatever else might come up. So the focus is on the product and not building fiefdoms and amassing political power within the organization. So production and build metrics are also available to everyone, and they're prominently displayed, and that's really how it should be. And the current infrastructure is documented, and maybe someone went to the trouble of having it printed on a plotter as well, which is quite a cool thing to do, and having it up in the office. So everyone is aware of exactly what is there, how the product is built, and how the product is architected. Next one is around incentive and responsibility alignment. So one of the early controversial aspects of what became DevOps was the assertion that engineering should also be on call rotations. So in fact, this idea was presented in a way that made it sound like your developers would want to be on call if you were truly dedicated to building the best possible product, because they were the ones responsible for the code. So I don't remember now who first articulated this point. My personal journey on this really began with John Allspaw and Paul Hammond's Flickr talk at Velocity. I think it was back in 2009. And they mentioned it in their talk. Regardless of the cultural characteristic here is really about empowerment. It's the people who are empowered to directly make an improvement that are the ones who will be alerted to the defect. Likewise, your team is incentivized around your core goal, creating an awesome product for your customers, whatever that product happens to be. Development isn't rewarding for writing lots of code, and operations isn't punishing when all that code doesn't run as expected in production. The team is rewarded when a product is awesome and shares in the improvement process when the product could become more awesome. Next one's around respect, because all team members should respect all the other team members. It doesn't matter what they do, how they do it, and what their feelings are. They don't actually have to like each other, which sounds a daft thing to say, but everyone needs to recognize that the contributions of everyone else, and they also need to treat their team members well. So you should be respectfully discussing and listening to others' opinions, and that should be a learning experience for everyone. No team member should be afraid to speak for fear of being abused or rudely dismissed. One of the great things I love about a healthy DevOps culture is that ability to really speak up and challenge other people in the team and be respectfully heard and be respectfully discussed and have a discussion around your point. And that's something that I think is really, really important in any DevOps team. Next one's around trust. So trust is a massive component of a DevOps culture. So operations, first of all, must trust that development are doing what they are because it's the best plan for success for the product. Development must trust QA isn't really there to sabotage their success, and they're also there for the success of the product. The product manager must trust that operations are going to give objective feedback and metrics at the next deployment. And if any one of the team doesn't trust another part of the team, your tools won't matter. We talk a lot about tools in DevOps, but actually culture is the key thing here. You can have whatever tools you like in play, but if the culture isn't right, and if one part of the team doesn't trust another part of the team, your tooling's irrelevant. It just simply won't work. Additionally, if you don't trust the people who work for you, why are they working there? And also, why are you working there as well? There should be questions that you're asking yourself. So there are 7 steps, I think, to building a DevOps culture. So some of the things we talked about on the previous slide, they go into a little bit more detail, and some of it will be fairly straightforward to you, but some of it will be things that you may not have thought about as well. So I think the first one is around fostering collaboration. Okay, it's really important to make sure that by fostering collaboration, you are making sure that people have the ability, the ways and the means to be able to work together effectively. If you foster collaboration, you are giving your team a great chance to succeed. Collaboration can mean many different things as well. It can mean the tooling to collaborate, and it can mean the opportunity to collaborate as well. You need to make sure that you give your teams both of these things to be able to foster a successful collaboration environment. Next is around end-to-end responsibility. And this is around everyone being responsible for their part of the process, but being overall responsible for the product. So yes, obviously developers need to be responsible for the development of the code, and your operations teams must be responsible for the running and the availability of the product. But everyone needs to be responsible for the product as a whole. We succeed as a team and we also fail as a team. Encouraging continuous improvement is a really big one in here. So continuous improvement is something that is the cornerstone of DevOps in many ways. If you are not continuously learning and continuously improving what you are doing as a group, then you are not learning from your mistakes. You are not learning from, not just mistakes, but you are not learning from experiences. And it's those things that happen, those experiences that happen during your product's journey that make you better and better. It might not be a mistake. It might be something that's been doing really, really well, but you can learn from that and you can make it better next time. The other focus is around automation. And, there's a big focus on automation in DevOps, especially when it comes to build, release, testing. And the key thing is to automate as much as you can over time. Don't set out trying to automate everything, or automate over time, because you need to learn if that process is right. It is no good automating bad processes, because you will just make those poor processes happen quicker. Make your processes lean, apply things like Kaizen improvement to them, and make sure that you are fundamentally doing the things that make those processes work well and work effectively and are efficient for your organization. Once you've done those things, then automate them. But remember that not everything should be automated. There are always some things that should be done manually. There are always some things that don't have to be done automatically. So make sure you automate the things that make sense to automate. Don't just aim for 100% automation because you can. Make sure you aim for the level of automation because it's the right thing to do. One of the things that I think we also forget in DevOps as well is that, and generally in operations teams and IT in general actually, is that we need to focus on the customer needs. We're building a product for a customer, right? Regardless of who that customer is, whether they're internal or external, we need to make sure that we're focusing on delivering value to those customers at every single step of the way. And that's something that we can't lose sight of. And value is different depending on the products that you build and the organization that you work for. Next thing's around embracing failure and learning from that failure. So we call this a growth mindset. So this is the theory and the way of working. It means that if something bad happens, let's just learn from that and make sure that we don't do it next time. Things will go wrong, and that is a given. Things will always go wrong in technology. Things will always go wrong with code that you write. But let's not attack the person that's done that or attack the process that's not worked properly. Let's learn from it and let's improve it through continuous improvement so that it doesn't happen again. The next thing is around uniting teams and experience. So this is also something that's really, really important. So having the right blend of teams and expertise is something that is really going to help your adoption of culture. Having a mix of new people at the start of their career with some experience and a mix of people that are very experienced will help build a cohesive team. They will help create more senior people within the teams that are natural leaders that people go to ask. And that will actually help bring our teams together as well. So that's something that is also really important. So the next step is around, now we know what a DevOps culture is, we know some of the steps to get there. We need to be ready to look at how we actually do this. So call it ready, set, change. How do we actually go forward and do this? So the first thing to remember is that we can implement new technology to do whatever we need to, but we can implement new processes to be able to do that, but we can't greenfield humans within our organization. Sure, you can, let some people go if that's the route you want to take and bring new people into your organization, but they still come with baggage from their previous roles, their experiences, the way they've been managed, the way they work. So changing the values of what they believe in and how they believe is a really challenging task. So I think it was Simon Sinek, the guy that did start with Why, who said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. So if you apply that same feeling to values and how you work, you have to believe in what you're doing and believe in the changes that you are making are going to help make an improvement to be able to do that. And not everyone can do that. Some people do that very well, and others will not, and there will always be the people in the middle. To be able to set that out and do that effectively, you need to know why you are starting, right? What is the primary business goal? It's not really good enough to just say, we are moving to DevOps because our competitors are. We are moving to DevOps because I saw some things at a conference and it's the right thing to do, right? We need to say we are moving to DevOps because our business is about to grow 100%. We need to move to DevOps because, insert any other business reason there. And then you need to understand why you are changing as well. So you also need to articulate up front what the measurable goals are. How do you know you are successful? And that's something that's really important as well. And actually, from experience, most DevOps transformations fail because of those two things. The primary goal is not set from the outset, so people don't know what they are trying to achieve. And people don't know why they are changing. People can't articulate what the measurable goals are up front. Another reason that this stuff fails as well is down to sponsorship. Okay, so it is important that DevOps is adopted from the bottom upwards. It's something that's clearly important. But it's also really, really important that sponsorship is down from the top level. There has to be interest from an executive level around measurable goals. So one of the best success stories I can definitely point to in this is Microsoft. Okay, so they've gone through a massive change of how they used to work, sporadic releases every so many years to now very frequent releases, teams working together more effectively, and all of the things that we're really talking about. That happened for two reasons. Firstly, the teams were invested in what they wanted to achieve. And what the business goal was and how they would be measured on those goals were set out at an executive level. So Satya Nadella coming as CEO a few years ago now And he fundamentally changed how Microsoft worked, and people believed in that. And because that top-down sponsorship was there, that also grew from the bottom up as well. And that is why Microsoft are actually a really big success story at an enterprise level of how you implement DevOps. So the next thing is around technical leadership. Excuse me. So it's very, very important that you have leaders within your business who are able to apply their experience and apply their level of leadership, both from a people perspective and a technical perspective, to the rest of the team. That is how people grow. That is how this is a success. It's no good just having to build a new team, because we can't greenfield the humans and people come with baggage, as we were saying. We need to make sure that we invest in the growth of our individuals to help grow leadership within the teams. And then finally, we need to identify some pilot projects. And this is where we turn projects into products. If you remember, just now we were talking about products and having product management and working in sprint cycles within Agile, and then applying some of the DevOps processes, such as continuous integration, testing, deployment, delivery. Identify some pilot projects to work on, gather feedback, again, in a continuous way, where we're not exempt from this continuous improvement cycle either as implementators of DevOps transformation. We need to know what's working, we need to know how it's working, and we need to know what we're going to change next time. Pilot projects are a great way to get that feedback and validate your thinking, so that next time you can make it again even better, just like a product. The next one is around mentoring your new culture. So when it comes to communication, so maybe your developers are working on a product and it's going to use a new third-party API. So they're talking about things like credentials and authorization with that third party. So QA will need to know how to write tests to go flex those features. Do they need fake accounts? Do they need dummy users? Your sysadmins will have questions around the SLA of the API, how failures are monitored, and how they're rolled up for reporting. And what if the API has an outage? And the whole team's worked on metrics and the information necessary for the product manager to make an informed decision on disabling or enabling that feature. When everyone knows up front what new features are in the pipeline, it's less likely for any of these topics to be missed. This makes your products more reliable ultimately and gives your customers a better experience. If any one of those actors in there would just gone forward and worked on something and deployed it without the knowledge of the rest of the team like we traditionally work, then we would have been in a bad scenario. And we would have been in a bad scenario because we would be asking those questions once the product had gone live. By communicating, we have the ability to make sure that everyone knows what is happening up front and all of the right questions are asked before development, before release. Again, respect. Okay, team members need to feel that everyone is being treated fairly and everyone has a voice. Okay, sometimes teams fight, and fighting out over a difficult topic is not always a bad thing, but it's possible to have a good fight and a bad fight. Okay. Personal attacks, name calling are obviously not the kinds of behavior that you want in a collaborative team or any organization for that matter. And you have to deal with them from time to time from a managerial standpoint. They're the difficult discussions for managers. And it is tempting to sit back and let people deal with the conflicts, but don't be tempted to ignore the destructive behaviors that come with that. And make sure that you engage in the people who are fighting in a constructive discussion. Work through some of the sticking points and act as a mediator to compromise if a compromise is warranted. It's also a good time to ask one of your SMEs to come in and help mediate and act as an impartial judge. So we talked about those technical experts and technical leadership. This is an area where they come into their own and can be really helpful. Okay, so finally around trust again. So your team members will learn to trust each other over time. It will build up over time. It is not something that will come instantly. Okay, so the changes to behaviors in communication, responsibility, and respect, they ultimately build an open and collaborative environment. So your team will build new relationships that they wouldn't have let in had they otherwise been in a siloed environment. So it may take a while for your team to heal from any post-deployment issues. Sometimes we call it post-deployment PTSD. And they may be haunted from some previous nightmares around deployments gone bad. So trust will take time to build up. Don't try and force trust. Trust is something that you need to let teams build up, and providing the right things around them, around open communication and better communication within teams will help build that over time. So your new DevOps enabled team, they're going to be busy, okay? So they're learning how to use some new tools. They're learning how to work together in more productive and efficient ways. And you want them to know when things are going well. Part of choosing good goals with metrics attached to them is that you can put up some graphs and see how the team is improving towards those goals. You can prove to the team that development time has improved, or deployment time has improved rather, and by how much. The product manager is hopefully ecstatic that new features for customers that have been suggested are now in sight for making it into production, and they're done in a more efficient way. In addition to the metrics relating to your goals, you may also need to check in with your team members one-on-one. This is something that you would obviously be taught as a leader as well. While we all hope that the team's excited to be working more closely together and getting a better product out, you still have to check on everyone individually and see how we're doing as individual people. Working as a team is great, but we do need that individual one-to-one contact with our line managers as well. So finally, as a manager, right, you get to declare victory and throw a party, okay? After working through a multifaceted project approach, it's important to stop, recap, and then celebrate. You need to choose a milestone that represents a significant amount of work and plan to pause. When you're facilitating a large cultural and behavior change within an organization and within teams within organizations, you want a little bit of time to assess the impact of those changes, not just to the team directly involved, but to any tangible teams around them as well. Hopefully other teams are also getting interested in the changing behaviors, and they can come to you and your team and your SMEs for help. Okay, creating some documentation around lessons learned and the challenges that you faced, they will help other teams in heading in a DevOps direction. Excuse me. But when you get to the end, go buy some cupcakes, go to the movies as a team, or do anything that says, we just did something really difficult. We learned great new things. We unlearned some of the old bad things, and we created a great product. But more importantly, we created a great product together. Okay, so just to finish off some starters to build a culture. So there are 4 things that I think that are really important. The first is around roles and responsibilities. So now that your development and your operations teams are collaborating more closely, you need to clarify who does what and also identify any skill gaps. So early in your DevOps journey, as well as any time the membership of your team changes, go through with your team what the roles and responsibilities are, because things do evolve over time. And as time moves on, you may find that the team needs to be doing more of something else and less of something else over here. Okay, rules of engagement, something else that's important as well. Whether you are a united DevOps team or you're a cross-functional working group, you'll work better together if you define how you'll work together. So every 6 months to every 12 months, define what we call a social contract between those different teams and refresh how you work together. Because again, things evolve. So make sure that you explicitly define and people understand how your team will work with another team and what the rules of engagement are when it comes to speaking to those teams. So what else is better than doing root cause analysis on an incident? Anticipating the risks so that you can solve them while there's still time. That's what pre-mortems are, right? You can run this at early phases of a product release as well as any big releases. You can learn a lot from pre-mortem activities and you can find out more about yourself. This is a way to enable continuous improvement within your organization and within your DevOps teams. It's really important that you understand what is going well and what could be done better. Next one is around retrospective. It's very similar to a pre-mortem in a lot of ways. So this is a classic agile technique, but it's critical for creating a culture of continuous improvement and continuous learning. Retrospectives provide that safe space to discuss what is working, what's not working, and what needs to change. We need to run these after every sprint. So if your sprint's 2 weeks, at the end of a 2-week sprint, make sure that you're running retrospectives, because these will help you understand what has happened in the last 2 weeks. And they should be time boxed to the last 2 weeks. Don't go into a retrospective and talk about something that happened 3 sprints ago. It is time boxed, and you are specifically talking about what has happened in the last sprint. So they should be done on a very frequent basis. If you start to do all of these things and do all of these things well, you have a good understanding of what people's roles and responsibilities are. You understand how you're going to engage with other people. You understand how you're going to work with other teams, and what the root cause of certain things of being within your organization and certain things that have happened. And also from a retrospective perspective, every 2 weeks, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about what has worked well, what has not worked well, and what we need to do to change. That fast cycle of continuous improvement is something that will really help you going forward. And it is something that will really make a difference as you start to mature on your DevOps journey. So with that, thank you for listening, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference.